Wolves respect power. Military packs worship strength. It is what Alpha Marcus Blackthorn drilled into every member of Silverpine Pack from the day they could walk. The law that kept order, that maintained hierarchy, that separated the worthy from the weak. The principle that meant survival in a world where rival packs circled like vultures, waiting for any sign of vulnerability. But when they forced young Aria Moonstone to shift at her military induction trial, when hundreds of warriors gathered to watch the colorless daughter finally reveal what broken wolf she carried, no one expected the truth. That power does not always announce itself with golden fur and perfect bloodlines. That sometimes the greatest threat to an empire is the girl they dismissed, the wolf they underestimated, the divine blessing they were too blind to recognize until it was far too late. The morning Aria turned 18, her sister did not come to wake her. It should have been a moment of pride, the day every wolf in Silverpine Pack waited for since birth, the day when the shift would finally come, when the wolf inside would break free and claim its place in the military hierarchy that defined their survival. Aria had dreamed of this morning for years, imagined her sister Seraphina's approving nod, imagined Alpha Marcus's firm hand on her shoulder, imagined the pack gathering to witness her transformation and welcoming her into the ranks of defenders who kept their territory safe. Instead, she woke alone to silence and the acrid smell of disappointment that had seeped into every corner of their small quarters at the edge of Packlands. She pushed herself up from the thin mattress, her long silver hair falling across her face like a curtain of moonlight on water. Not blonde, not white, but that strange, colorless shade that caught light without holding it. She had always hated her hair. In a pack where golden locks signified strength and dark hair meant cunning, her silver marked her as other, different, potentially defective. The knock on her door came sharp and military, 3 precise raps that spoke of discipline and duty. Aria. The voice belonged to Captain Vera, grizzled and hard as iron. The council has summoned you. Dress in your logistics uniform. You have 15 minutes. No happy birthday, no warmth, just orders and the weight of expectation that pressed down like a physical force. Aria pulled on the gray logistics officer trainee uniform that hung on the back of her door. Not the ceremonial white worn by combat inductees, but something plain, practical. The uniform of those who counted supplies and plotted convoy routes while others earned glory in battle. The message was clear. Do not expect to be celebrated. She emerged from her room to find the corridor empty. Other families would be gathering now, preparing for induction ceremonies where proud parents watched their children join the warrior ranks. But Aria's mother had died 8 years ago in a border raid, torn apart by enemy wolves, while Aria huddled in a supply bunker, too terrified to send the warning that might have saved her. Her father had disappeared 4 years later on a reconnaissance mission deep in hostile territory. His body was never found. All she had left was Seraphina, and her sister had not spoken to her with genuine warmth in over a year. The walk to the Central Command Arena took 20 minutes through the heart of military territory. Every step felt like a march toward judgment. Pack members in uniform stopped their morning drills to watch her pass, some with curiosity, others with barely concealed contempt, and a few, a terrible few, with pity. "That is the Moonstone girl," someone whispered from a training yard. "The defective one." Her sister shifted into a golden wolf at 16, led 3 successful raids against Ironclaw Pack. This one, though, word is she might not have a wolf at all. Can you imagine? 18 years and nothing inside but human weakness. In wartime, we cannot afford dead weight. Aria kept her eyes forward, her spine straight. She had learned early that showing pain only made them hungrier for more. The arena sprawled before her like an ancient coliseum, a massive circular structure of reinforced concrete and steel that had witnessed decades of military trials, induction ceremonies, and tactical demonstrations. Today, it was already full, not with celebrating families, but with the entire command structure of Silverpine Pack. Hundreds of warriors and officers lined the tiered seating, all gathered to witness what would surely be a spectacle, the weak daughter's inevitable humiliation. At the center of the arena floor stood the command table, a crescent-shaped steel structure where the 5 most powerful wolves in Silverpine sat in judgment. And at the head of that table, radiating authority like heat from a forge, sat Alpha Marcus Blackthorn. Aria's breath caught despite herself. Marcus was everything an alpha should be, 25 years old but already scarred from countless battles, tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair cut military short, and eyes that seemed to calculate threat assessments even while at rest. He had earned his position not through bloodline, but through tactical brilliance, leading Silverpine through 3 major conflicts without losing a single engagement. Every unmated female in the pack, and several mated ones, watched him with barely concealed desire. Next to him sat her sister. Aria Moonstone had been beautiful before her shift. After transforming into a golden wolf at 16, she had become devastating. Now at 20, she sat at the alpha's right hand as his fiancée, her golden hair pinned in the severe style of a combat officer, her perfect face arranged in an expression of practiced sympathy that did not reach her cold blue eyes. The white silk scarf at her throat marked her as the future Luna, the alpha's chosen mate who would help lead their pack through the wars that never seemed to end. Aria Moonstone. Alpha Marcus's voice boomed across the arena, cutting through the crowd's murmurs like a blade through flesh. You stand before this command council on your 18th birthday to prove your worth to this pack. As is tradition, you will shift, and your wolf will be evaluated for strength, size, and tactical capability. Aria's throat went dry. This was not how induction ceremonies usually proceeded. Most wolves were allowed to shift in private with family present, then presented to the pack afterward, forcing her to shift in front of everyone, to be evaluated like military equipment. This was deliberately designed to expose her weakness. Alpha Marcus! Aria found her voice somehow, though it shook like a rookie under fire. Traditionally, first shifts happen in private. The transition can be unpredictable, dangerous. Traditionally, Serafina spoke up, her melodious voice carrying across the arena with the practiced projection of an officer addressing troops. Wolves with strong bloodlines shift in private because their transformations are sacred moments of power. But you, dear sister, have shown no signs of wolf presence your entire life. The council has decided that public evaluation is necessary to determine if you possess a wolf at all. She paused, letting cruel anticipation build among the watching warriors. Or if you are simply human, a liability we cannot afford in wartime. The crowd erupted in gasps and excited whispers. To be declared human in a werewolf military pack was a fate worse than death. Exile at minimum, or assignment to the labor camps where those without wolves served until they broke. The council has made its decision, Counselor Magnus announced from his seat at the table. The elderly wolf's weathered face showed no emotion, but Aria caught something in his eyes. Calculation. Ambition. This was theater, and he was playing his part. Aria Moonstone, you will shift now. Prove your wolf exists, or be designated as human waste masquerading in uniform. Aria's legs nearly buckled. Around her, the crowd was a sea of eager faces. Warriors hungry for entertainment, for someone weaker to mock, for confirmation that they were better, stronger, more deserving of the goddess's gifts. She looked up at Marcus, hoping for what? Mercy? Fairness? But the alpha's face remained impassive, carved from stone. If he had any objection to this public humiliation, he showed no sign. "Strip!" Serafina commanded, standing now, her voice sharp as broken glass. "Military regulations require unencumbered transformation. Or do you need assistance with that too? Perhaps we should summon the logistics clerks to help you, since you perform so well at their level." Laughter rippled through the arena, cruel and hungry, the sound of predators savoring weakness. Aria's hands moved to the buttons of her gray uniform jacket. Each one felt like removing a layer of dignity, of self. But what choice did she have? Refuse and be declared human immediately. Comply and face whatever humiliation awaited when her wolf, if she even had one, proved small and weak. The jacket fell to the concrete floor. Then her shirt, her boots, her pants. She stood in the center of the arena in only her undergarments, silver hair covering what little modesty remained, while hundreds of pack members stared and whispered and judged. "Now," Alpha Marcus said quietly, but his voice carried to every corner of the suddenly silent arena. "Call your wolf. Shift. Show us what you are." Aria closed her eyes and reached deep inside herself to that place where every wolf kept their beast. She had felt it before, fleeting touches of something wild and powerful that vanished before she could grasp it. Every other wolf described the shift as natural as breathing, as easy as opening a door that was already unlocked. For Aria, it had always felt like clawing at a wall with bare hands. "Please," she begged silently into the darkness of her own mind, "please be there. Please be strong enough to prove them wrong." The response came not in words but in presence, something vast stirring in the depths of her consciousness, something that had been waiting, watching, growing stronger in the darkness while the world above dismissed her as broken. "We are ready," a voice that was hers but not hers whispered through her thoughts. "We have always been ready." They were not. The first crack of bone was agony beyond description. Aria screamed as her body began to break and reform, as her spine curved and lengthened, as her hands twisted into paws and her face elongated into a muzzle. The shift that should take seconds for a healthy wolf stretched into agonizing minutes. Every bone snapping, every muscle tearing and reknitting, every nerve ending on fire with transformation. The crowd's laughter died into uncertain silence because something was wrong. The shift was not stopping. Aria's wolf was growing and growing and growing. When the transformation finally finished, Aria stood on 4 legs in the center of the arena, panting from exertion and pain. But she was not looking up at the command council anymore. She was looking down at them. Her wolf was massive, easily 3 times the size of a normal werewolf, towering over even the largest alpha males in the arena. Her shoulder height matched that of a full-grown grizzly bear. Her paws were the size of dinner plates. And her fur. Her fur was pure, pristine, luminous white. Not silver, not gray, not cream. White like starlight made solid. White like the moon itself had taken wolf form. White like legends whispered around fires on moonless nights. Legends of the white Luna, the rarest wolf blessed directly by the moon goddess herself. The arena had gone completely silent. Not a breath, not a whisper, not even the rustle of uniform fabric. Aria turned her great head to look at the command council, at her sister whose face had drained of all color, at Alpha Marcus who had risen to his feet, his expression somewhere between awe and terror. The tactical calculation in his eyes was running scenarios now: threat assessment, asset evaluation, political ramifications. Then, from the eldest counselor, ancient Counselor Magnus, who rarely showed emotion, came a single word, whispered but carrying to every corner of the suddenly frozen arena: "Impossible." The silence lasted exactly 3 heartbeats. Then chaos erupted. Wolves throughout the arena began shouting, some falling to their knees in instinctive submission to divine authority, others scrambling backward in terror, pressing against the walls as if the massive white wolf might lunge at any moment. The sound was deafening, a cacophony of shock, fear, and disbelief that crashed over Aria like a physical wave. Her massive white wolf stood frozen in the center of the arena, confused and overwhelmed by the intensity of response. Through her wolf's eyes, everything was sharper, clearer, more intense than human perception. She could smell the terror rolling off the crowd in acrid waves. She could hear hearts hammering in chests 50 yards away. She could feel the power thrumming through her enormous body like lightning contained in flesh. And she could see her sister's face twisted in naked hatred that Seraphina had never bothered to hide before. Silence. Alpha Marcus's command cut through the pandemonium like artillery fire. His alpha authority slammed into the crowd with the force of a physical blow, demanding obedience through sheer will. Gradually, the noise died down to frightened whispers and the shuffle of boots on concrete. Marcus descended from the command platform, his movements slow and deliberate, his eyes never leaving Aria's massive form. Even his considerable size, large for an alpha and hardened by years of combat, looked almost childlike next to her wolf. He approached with the careful precision of a soldier approaching unexploded ordnance. "Shift back," he commanded, his voice steady, but Aria could smell the unease beneath his controlled exterior. The sharp tang of adrenaline, the subtle shift in posture that spoke of a predator recognizing something higher on the food chain. "Now, Aria. Shift back to human form." Aria tried. She reached for that internal switch that should return her to human skin. But her wolf, finally free after 18 years of being locked away in the darkness of her consciousness, did not want to let go. The beast inside her was reveling in its size, its strength, the way hundreds of wolves who had mocked Aria now cowered in fear, the respect that came not from earned merit but from overwhelming physical dominance. "No," her wolf seemed to growl inside her mind, the voice clearer now than it had ever been. "They wanted to see me. Let them look. Let them understand what they dismissed, what they tried to break." "She cannot control it," someone shouted from the crowd, panic rising like floodwater. "The white wolf is feral, a curse upon our pack." "The colorless daughter has brought divine judgment," another voice cried with the fervor of religious mania. "She will destroy us all." "Shift back." Marcus's alpha command was stronger this time, laced with power that should have forced any wolf to comply immediately. The weight of it pressed against Aria like a physical force, demanding submission, requiring obedience. But her wolf merely lowered its massive head and met his eyes. A direct challenge that made several council members gasp in shock. In wolf hierarchy, holding an alpha's gaze was an act of defiance, of dominance, a declaration that the challenged wolf did not recognize the alpha's authority. Aria's wolf held Marcus's stare effortlessly, without strain, as if his command was merely suggestion rather than law. "By the goddess!" Elder Elena breathed from her position at the far end of the command table. The ancient wolf's voice carried an edge of fear Aria had never heard from the unshakable elder, who had survived 3 major wars and seen 5 alphas rise and fall. She is not submitting to alpha authority. The white wolf answers to no one. To nothing, except perhaps the moon herself. "Then she is a threat," Seraphina's voice rang out sharp and clear across the arena. She had composed herself now, her beautiful face arranged in an expression of concerned authority that would have been convincing if Aria had not seen the hatred beneath. "Alpha Marcus, you must see that my sister cannot control her wolf, a beast that size, that power, with no submission to pack hierarchy. She could kill us all, not deliberately perhaps, but through lack of control, through the chaos that follows unchecked divine power." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd like wind through tall grass. Fear was rapidly transforming into hostility. Aria could smell it in the air, taste it on her tongue. The shift from shock to anger, from awe to threat assessment. Warriors calculating kill zones, officers planning containment strategies. Her own pack already viewing her not as a member but as an enemy combatant. She needed to shift back now, needed to prove she was not a mindless beast, that the divine power came with control, with discipline, with the military precision their society valued above all else. "Please!" Aria begged her wolf internally, pushing the thought with desperate urgency. "Please let me shift back. They are going to kill us if we do not comply. Can you not feel them preparing? Smell the violence building? They fear what they cannot control, and fear makes them dangerous." Her wolf's presence in her mind was vast, ancient, and utterly unmoved by the threat of violence. But finally, perhaps sensing Aria's genuine terror, perhaps recognizing that this was not the time for defiance, it relented with the reluctance of a general ordered to retreat from strategic ground. "Very well," the wolf's voice rumbled through her consciousness like distant thunder. "But remember this moment. Remember how quickly they turned from mockery to terror. Remember that they feared your strength more than they pitied your weakness. That knowledge will serve you in the wars to come." The shift back was faster but no less painful. Bones cracking and reforming, body shrinking from massive to human scale. Fur receding beneath skin that felt too thin, too vulnerable after the armored strength of her wolf form. When it was over, Aria collapsed naked on the cold concrete floor of the arena, gasping for breath, her silver hair plastered to her skin with sweat and the residue of transformation. Someone, a female logistics officer she did not recognize, hurried forward with a gray blanket and wrapped it around her shaking shoulders. The small kindness nearly broke Aria's composure entirely after the brutality of the trial. She looked up with gratitude, but the officer's eyes held only fear. Fear, and the calculation of someone deciding whether showing compassion to the dangerous anomaly would cost her career. "Explain." Alpha Marcus stood over her, his shadow blocking out the harsh arena lights. His voice was not cruel, but it was hard, unyielding. the voice of a commander who had sent soldiers to their deaths and slept soundly after because the decision was tactically sound. Explain how the weakest member of our pack, the girl who could not keep up in basic training, who showed no signs of wolf presence for 18 years, suddenly shifts into a white Luna of legend. Aria tried to speak, but her throat was raw from screaming during the transformation. She swallowed hard, tasting copper and salt, and tried again. Her voice came out as a whisper that somehow carried in the silent arena. I do not know, Alpha. I have always felt my wolf, but she was distant, locked away. I thought I was defective, broken. I thought the goddess had forgotten me or found me unworthy. But my wolf was there all along, waiting, growing stronger in the darkness because I was not ready, because releasing that much power into a child would have destroyed me. The explanation was true as far as it went, but Aria could feel there was more. Knowledge locked in her wolf's ancient consciousness that would take time to unravel. Memories that predated her birth. Understanding that came not from learning, but from divine inheritance. You thought correctly, Serafina interrupted, descending gracefully from the command platform to stand beside Marcus. She looked perfect beside him, her officer's uniform tailored to emphasize her figure without sacrificing military bearing. Golden to his dark, beauty matching power, the ideal alpha pair that every pack aspired to produce. Something is clearly wrong with her. Normal wolves bond with their humans from birth. They grow together, shift together naturally when the body reaches maturity. This aberration, this thing that was locked away for 18 years and then forced its way out, it is not natural, it is corrupted. The white Luna is sacred, Elder Elena said firmly, rising from her seat with the careful movements of advanced age. Though Aria noticed the elder's hands were trembling, betraying fear that her voice kept carefully controlled. It is spoken of in our oldest texts, military histories from the great wars 5 centuries past. A white Luna appears once every 1,000 years, blessed by the moon goddess herself, sent to bring great change to our kind. Change, Counselor Magnus finished, his voice heavy with implication that landed like a bomb in the silence. Great change, not necessarily good change. Elder Elena, the last white Luna recorded in our military histories, was 500 years ago. She united the warring packs through conquest, drowning entire territories in blood. Thousands died in the wars she started. Cities burned, bloodlines were extinguished. She brought change, certainly, but at what cost? Ice flooded Aria's veins. I am not. I would never. I do not want conquest or war. I just want to serve. To prove I am not worthless, to find a place in this pack that has been my only home. The words sounded weak even to her own ears, pleading, desperate, everything a military culture despised. She tried to stand, to meet their judgment on her feet like a soldier, but her legs would not support her weight. The transformation had drained her more completely than she had realized. You cannot even control your shift, Serafina said with false sweetness, crouching down to Aria's level, with concern that was as genuine as a training dummy's smile. You challenged our alpha's authority without even meaning to. What happens next time, dear sister? What happens when you get angry or frightened? When you lose control? Will that massive beast tear through our pack because you lack the discipline to reign in your own power? Will you kill warriors who have trained their entire lives to defend our territory because you could not manage basic self-control? Aria's mind raced, searching for defense, for argument, for anything that could counter the logic being used to frame her confusion as malice. Everything Serafina was saying was technically true. She had not been able to control her wolf immediately, had not been able to shift back on command, had met Marcus's eyes in challenge without intending disrespect. But the way her sister was framing it, turning her struggle into threat, her learning curve into proof of danger, it was masterful manipulation. The council must decide, Marcus said heavily, and Aria's heart sank at the resignation in his voice. He had already made up his mind. His tactical brain had run the scenarios and determined that an uncontrolled divine weapon was more liability than asset. Aria Moonstone, you are hereby charged with harboring an unstable and potentially dangerous wolf. Until we can determine the extent of the threat you pose to this pack's survival, you will be confined to Moonspire Tower for evaluation and training. Moonspire Tower. The words hit Aria like a fist to the chest. Moonspire was not a prison in the traditional sense. It was a remote weapons testing facility built decades ago on the far edge of Pack territory, designed to contain experimental ordnance and conduct live fire exercises away from civilian populations. Using it to house a Pack member. The message was clear. She was being classified as a weapon, not a wolf. "You should be grateful," Serafina said coldly, but Aria caught the flash of satisfaction in her sister's eyes. Brief, but unmistakable. This had been planned, orchestrated. The public trial designed not to evaluate, but to create the exact scenario that would justify Aria's removal. The Moonspire Tower is more comfortable than the military detention facilities, unless you would prefer those instead, dear sister. Aria shook her head mutely, the blanket clutched tight around her shoulders like armor that could somehow protect her from the judgment being passed. "Then it is settled," Marcus declared with the finality of a door slamming shut. "Aria Moonstone will be escorted to Moonspire Tower immediately. She is forbidden from shifting without explicit permission from her assigned instructor. She is forbidden from contacting other Pack members outside official training sessions. She is forbidden from leaving the tower grounds until her evaluation period ends. Guards, take her into custody." Two large male wolves stepped forward from the arena's security detail. Their hands were not gentle as they hauled Aria to her feet, supporting her weight when her legs threatened to buckle. The blanket slipped and she clutched at it desperately, trying to maintain some shred of dignity as they half-carried, half-dragged her across the arena floor. The crowd parted before them like water, wolves pressing back against the tiered seats to avoid even coming close to her. Some faces showed pity. Most showed relief that the threat was being removed, contained, controlled through military discipline and isolation. And a few, a terrible few, showed hunger. The predatory interest of those who saw weakness and wanted to exploit it. As she was pulled past the command platform, Aria's eyes met her sister's one last time. Serafina smiled, beautiful and cold and utterly victorious. And Aria understood with terrible clarity. This had been the plan all along. The public shift designed to expose her difference, the framework carefully constructed to transform Aria's greatest strength into her greatest liability. The colorless daughter had finally proven her worth, and her sister was going to make her pay for it in isolation and fear. The guards dragged her out of the arena, past the jeering crowds that had gathered outside, through Packlands toward her new prison. And in the back of Aria's mind, her massive white wolf stirred. Patient, powerful, waiting. "They think they have caged us," her wolf seemed to whisper, with the patience of something that had already waited 18 years and could wait 18 more if necessary. "Let them think that. Let them believe we are contained. Let them grow comfortable with our absence. And when the time comes, when they need what they fear, they will learn that cages only hold what chooses to stay." Aria wanted to argue, wanted to insist that she had no desire for revenge or dominance, but exhaustion dragged at her consciousness like an anchor pulling her under dark water. The last thing she saw before darkness claimed her was the Moonspire Tower rising in the distance, a gray concrete monument to isolation, her new home, her new cage, the place where she would either learn to control the divine power that had marked her or be destroyed by the fear it inspired. The colorless daughter had become the White Luna. But whether that transformation was blessing or curse, salvation or damnation, remained to be seen. And in a military pack balanced on the knife edge of survival, with enemies circling and resources stretched thin, the answer to that question might determine whether Silverpine Pack endured or fell into history as another casualty of war. The guards shoved her into the back of an armored transport vehicle. The door slammed shut with the finality of a tomb being sealed. And as the engine roared to life and carried her toward isolation, Aria Moonstone closed her eyes and tried not to think about what came next, tried not to imagine the training that awaited, the tests, the evaluation of her worth measured in destructive capability rather than character. She was 18 years old. She had just shifted for the first time, and she had already been declared too dangerous to exist among her own kind. The White Luna had risen, and Silverpine Pack would never be the same. Moonspire Tower stood remote and imposing at the edge of Silverpine territory. 4 stories of reinforced concrete, its walls bore the scars of decades serving as weapons testing facility. Aria stumbled as the guards shoved her through the heavy steel door, still wrapped in nothing but the gray blanket from the arena. Her bare feet scraped against cold concrete floors that smelled of gunpowder and decades of military use. "Top floor," the larger guard grunted. A wolf named Lieutenant Cade, whose contempt for her radiated like heat. "That is where you will be housed during evaluation. There is basic furniture, a latrine, and water. Food will be brought twice daily. You will eat what you are given when you are given it. And training—" Aria's voice came out smaller than she intended, rough from the screaming of her transformation. "Alpha Marcus said I would be evaluated, trained to control my wolf. When does that begin?" The guards exchanged glances, and something cruel flickered in their eyes. "Training," Cade laughed, harsh and barking. "Right. Captain Aldrich will handle your instruction. He will determine your value as asset or liability. Now move." They forced her up a winding metal staircase, each step narrower and more worn than the last. By the time they reached the top floor, Aria's legs shook from exhaustion. The room they shoved her into was sparse, maybe 15 feet across with a single narrow cot, a wooden chair, a small table bolted to the floor, and a bucket in the corner. One window, barely wider than her shoulders, looked out over the forest. Steel bars welded across it from the outside. "Welcome home," Cade sneered, tossing a bundle of gray fabric at her feet. "Standard issue fatigues. Get dressed. Cannot have you parading around naked, though I doubt you could tempt anyone. Colorless freak." The other guard, younger with nervous eyes, actually flinched at Cade's cruelty, but he said nothing as they backed out. The door slammed shut with a heavy metallic clang, a bolt slid into place from the outside, and Aria was alone. She stood there for a long moment, still clutching the blanket, staring at the door as reality crashed over her in waves. This morning she had woken hoping for acceptance. Now she was a prisoner in a weapons facility. Her greatest strength declared her greatest threat, sentenced to isolation that might end in her execution. "Do not cry," she told herself fiercely. "Do not give them that satisfaction. Do not show weakness." But the tears came anyway, hot and bitter, streaming down her cheeks as she sank to the cold floor. Great racking sobs tore from her chest, 18 years of mockery culminating in this moment. This cage, this judgment that said even divine blessing was not sufficient to earn acceptance. "You are not a monster," her wolf's presence whispered in her mind, stronger now after the shift. "You are magnificent. They cage you because they fear what you could become." "What good is magnificent if I am alone?" Aria whispered back. "What good is power if it only makes them hate me more?" Her wolf had no answer for that. Eventually the tears stopped. Aria forced herself to stand, to drop the blanket and pull on the rough fatigues, a shapeless gray uniform that hung on her thin frame and scratched against her skin. She moved to the window and gripped the steel bars, looking out at the forest beyond. The trees were thick here, old growth that had stood for centuries. In the distance she could see mountains rising purple against the afternoon sky, beautiful and completely unreachable. A sound at the door made her turn. The bolt scraped back and a different guard entered, older, with gray threading through his dark hair and eyes that held something approaching professionalism. "Aria Moonstone," he said formally, setting down a tray with bread, some kind of protein, and water. "I am Captain Aldrich. I will be overseeing your evaluation and training regimen. We begin tomorrow at dawn. Eat, rest. You will need your strength." Hope flickered in Aria's chest. "Thank you, Captain. I want to learn. I need to prove I am not a threat, that I can control this power." Aldrich studied her for a long moment, with an expression she could not read. "We will see what you are capable of, Moonstone. The Alpha has given me 60 days to assess your tactical value and threat level. At the end of that period, I will deliver my evaluation to the Command Council. Your future will be determined by that report. 60 days, 2 months. The same timeline as the treaty expiration with Ironclaw Pack. She would be evaluated while the Pack prepared for war." Aldrich left without another word. Aria ate mechanically. The bread was stale, the meat tough, the water tepid, but it filled the hollow ache in her stomach. As the sun set and darkness crept into her small room, she lay on the narrow cot and stared at the ceiling. Tried not to think about her mother, who had died believing Aria was worthless. Tried not to wonder if her father had disappeared because he could not bear the shame of a colorless daughter. Sleep came eventually, restless and full of dreams, where she ran through forests on 4 white legs, only to wake and find steel bars blocking escape. Dawn came with the scrape of the bolt and Aldrich's weathered face appearing in the doorway. "Up," he commanded. "Training begins now." Aria scrambled from the cot, her body stiff. She followed Aldrich down the winding stairs and out into a courtyard behind the tower. A circular space perhaps 40 feet across, surrounded by high concrete walls topped with razor wire. A containment zone. "Strip," Aldrich said, his tone businesslike. "You cannot train to shift if you are worried about destroying military property." Aria's cheeks burned, but she complied, folding the fatigues carefully. The morning air was cold against her skin, raising goosebumps along her arms. "Now," he said, stopping in front of her with arms crossed, "call your wolf. But this time, control the shift. Do not let her overwhelm you. You command her, not the other way around." Aria closed her eyes and reached inward. The presence was immediate, vast, and powerful, pressing against her consciousness like an ocean against a dam. "Easy," Aria thought, slowly. "We shift together." Controlled. But the moment she opened that internal door, her wolf surged forward like a tidal wave. Aria screamed as the shift took her, bones breaking and reforming, body expanding rapidly. It was faster than the arena transformation, perhaps 30 seconds, but no less violent. When it was over, her massive white wolf stood panting in the courtyard, barely fitting in the space between walls. "Too fast," Aldrich said calmly, pressed back against the wall. "You let her take control. Try again. Shift back." Aria tried. She visualized her human form, reached for that internal switch, but her wolf was not ready. It wanted to run, to stretch these powerful muscles. "Please," Aria begged, "please shift back. I need to show them I can control this." Her wolf resisted for another minute before finally relenting. The shift back left her gasping and shaking on the cold ground. "Again," Aldrich commanded, and so it went. Shift. Shift back. Over and over until Aria's body felt like one massive bruise, until she was sobbing from pain and exhaustion, until she could no longer tell where her consciousness ended and her wolf's began. "Enough," Aldrich finally said as the sun reached its peak. "That is sufficient for today." "But I have not," Aria gasped, still on hands and knees. "I cannot control it yet. I need more practice." "Tomorrow," Aldrich cut her off. "We continue tomorrow." He escorted her back to her room, left food and water, and locked the door with that same heavy finality. Aria collapsed on the cot, every muscle screaming. But beneath the physical pain was something worse, a creeping suspicion that had been growing all morning. Aldrich had pushed her to shift repeatedly, forced her to exhaust herself, but he had given her no actual instruction, no guidance on how to moderate the transformation, no techniques or strategies, just the command to do it over and over. That was not training, that was breaking. The pattern continued for days that blurred into weeks. Wake at dawn, strip, shift until collapse, return to cage, sleep, repeat. Aria's body grew stronger from the constant transformations, her wolf becoming slightly more responsive. But the control she desperately needed remained elusive, and Aldrich's training never evolved beyond the same brutal repetition. On the 15th day, everything changed. Aria was mid-shift when a commotion erupted from the front of the tower. Voices shouting, the sound of vehicles arriving, heavy boots and sharp commands. Her shift completed just as Alpha Marcus strode into the courtyard and Aria's massive white wolf froze. Every instinct screamed danger. The Alpha was not alone. Behind him came a tactical squad, 12 wolves in combat gear with weapons ready, and beside Marcus walked Seraphina. "Well," Seraphina's musical voice carried across the space, "look at that! Still no control even after 2 weeks of intensive training. How disappointing, sister." Marcus's dark eyes swept over Aria's wolf form, and she saw the calculation there. Cold assessment of threat versus asset. "Aldrich reports you have made minimal progress," Marcus announced. "Your shifts are still violent and uncontrolled. You still cannot shift on command reliably." "Because he is not teaching me," Aria wanted to scream. "Because this is systematic torture designed to prove I am dangerous." But she could not speak in wolf form, could not defend herself, could only stand there while they discussed her failure. "Perhaps," Seraphina said thoughtfully, moving closer, "we need to try different methods, more intensive approaches. After all, we only have 45 days left before the treaty with Ironclaw expires. It would be such a tragedy if Aria could not prove she is safe to deploy. The false sympathy made Aria's wolf growl low in its chest, a sound that rumbled like distant thunder. The tactical squad's weapons came up instantly. "See?" Seraphina's eyes flashed with triumph. "Aggressive, unstable, exactly what we feared." "She is frightened," a new voice cut in. The nervous guard from Aria's first day stepped forward. She has been isolated for 2 weeks, forced to shift with no real guidance. And now strangers enter with weapons drawn. Any wolf would be defensive. "Are you questioning the Alpha's security?" Cade snarled. "I defend military logic," the younger guard said quietly. "Context matters when assessing threat responses. She has been given impossible tasks and judged for failing them. That is sabotage." "Enough!" Marcus's voice was sharp. "Aria Moonstone, you have 45 days remaining. If you cannot demonstrate reliable control by that deadline, the Command Council will reconvene to determine your disposition." Aria's wolf wanted to lunge, to show them exactly how much control she did not have, but some deeper instinct held her back. "This is a test," she realized. "They are trying to provoke me, make me lose control so they can declare me dangerous and end this early." With every ounce of willpower, Aria forced her wolf to back down, to lower its massive head, to break eye contact with Marcus and demonstrate deference. Silence fell over the courtyard. "Interesting," Aldrich said quietly. "She just demonstrated more discipline than she has in 2 weeks. She recognized the political trap and chose submission over instinct." Marcus's expression flickered with something that might have been surprise. "One moment of control does not prove reliability," Seraphina said sharply. "She is still enormous, still unstable. A threat to your position." Aria's wolf pushed the words through her shifted form, forcing human speech through vocal cords never designed for language. The sound was distorted, layered with harmonics that should not exist, but comprehensible. Every wolf in the courtyard froze in shock. Speaking in wolf form was physically impossible. It violated every known principle of werewolf biology, except Aria just had. "You see?" Seraphina's face went pale, then flushed with rage. "She is unnatural. Speaking in wolf form is an abomination." "Or a sign of the White Luna," Aldrich interrupted, his voice filled with awe. "The legends mention it. The White Luna could speak in any form, could command with voice or thought. If Aria can speak while shifted," Marcus said slowly, "then she is more powerful than we understood." "More dangerous," Seraphina insisted. "Enough!" Marcus raised a hand. "You have 45 days remaining, Aria Moonstone. When the Command Council reconvenes, speaking while shifted will not be sufficient. You will need to prove you can shift at will, maintain discipline under combat stress, and submit to military hierarchy." They left then, Seraphina with barely concealed fury, Marcus with cold calculation. Only the younger guard remained behind for a moment. "You spoke," he whispered, wonder competing with fear. "You actually spoke in wolf form. Do you know what that means?" Aria's wolf was too tired to respond. She shifted back to human form and collapsed naked and shaking on the concrete. The guard quickly looked away, grabbing her fatigues and handing them over. "It means I am special," Aria managed. "The kind of special that threatens everything they have built. Or the kind that could save us all," the guard said quietly. "My name is Declan Rivers, and I think they are making a terrible mistake treating you like a weapon instead of a soldier." "Declan," Aria repeated, pulling on the fatigues. "Why risk yourself?" "Because 3 years ago when I first joined as a logistics analyst, I was an outsider. You were working in the kitchens then, just 15, and you saved me extra food when no one was watching, smiled when you saw me, treated me like I mattered." He shrugged. "Seems like my turn to return the favor." Tears pricked Aria's eyes. She had forgotten about that, forgotten the shy young analyst who had looked so lost. "Thank you," she whispered, "for seeing me, for remembering." "Do not thank me yet," Declan said grimly. "We have 45 days to turn you from a threat into an asset, and trust me, Seraphina is going to do everything in her power to make sure you fail." "Then we had better get to work," Aria said, forcing strength into her voice, "because I am done being what they expect me to be." Declan smiled, small but genuine. "Then I will help however I can. Real training, not whatever Aldrich has been doing, but we have to be careful. If Seraphina discovers I am assisting you, both our careers end." "I understand," Aria said. As Declan left, Aria sat on her cot and felt something she had not experienced since her shift. Not hope exactly, but determination. Purpose. Her wolf stirred in her mind. "We will not fail," her wolf seemed to say. "We will not break. And when the time comes," Aria thought back, "we will show them something they never expected." That night, true to his word, Declan returned after the guard rotation had changed, and Cade had retreated with his customary whiskey. The bolt scraped back with careful quiet, and Declan slipped into Aria's room carrying a satchel. "Get up," he whispered urgently, setting a covered lantern on the table. "We do not have much time, maybe 3 hours before the next security check." Aria scrambled from the cot, exhaustion forgotten. "What do we do first?" she asked. Declan pulled out rolled parchments, spreading them across the table. "These are intelligence reports from the past 6 months, border raid patterns, casualty assessments." He tapped a series of red marks on a territory map. "Notice anything unusual?" Aria leaned closer, studying the patterns with her logistics training. "The attacks correlate with officer briefing schedules. Every raid happens within 48 hours of a command-level tactical meeting." "Exactly," Declan said grimly. "I have been tracking this pattern for months, ever since my brother died in an ambush that should not have been possible. The convoy route was changed last minute. Only 5 officers knew the new path. Yet the rogues were waiting with exactly the right force composition." "Your brother?" Aria said softly. "You are investigating treason, looking for the mole who got him killed." "Both can be true." Declan met her eyes. "I want justice. But I also believe you are being sabotaged because you represent a threat to someone in command, someone who benefits from you being eliminated." "Serafina," Aria breathed. "We need proof," Declan said. "This is a blood sample analysis from a rogue killed 3 weeks ago." He tapped the readout. "See this marker? Pack scent. This rogue had recent close contact with someone from Silverpine." "So the rogues are not just getting intelligence," Aria said. "They are meeting directly with their source." "Shadow magic supplies," Declan corrected. "I found traces of compounds that should not exist outside forbidden texts. Ritual components used in corruption magic. Someone is actively enhancing enemy forces with dark power." The pieces fell into place in Aria's mind. Serafina's unnatural confidence, the way she had moved with impossible speed. Her sister was not just politically ambitious, she was corrupted by shadow magic. Then Declan pulled out something else. A journal. Worn leather, pages yellowed. "I found this hidden in the archives," he said quietly. "It belonged to Serafina, from 6 months ago." He opened it to a marked page, and Aria read her sister's handwriting. Entry dated 6 months prior. "Marcus chose Aria to advise on supply logistics today, said her analytical mind was valuable for campaign planning. Me, he assigned to standard patrol duty. As if my combat record means nothing. As if Golden Wolf transformation is less valuable than the colorless freak's ability to count supplies." Entry 4 months prior. "I found old texts in the restricted section. Forbidden knowledge about power beyond wolves. Shadow entities that offer strength without limits. No more being second choice. No more watching the worthless one gain favor while I perfect everything and receive nothing." Entry 3 months prior. "First ritual complete. I can feel it changing me. The shadows whisper promises. They see my worth. They value strength. Soon Marcus will see it too. Soon everyone will understand that I was always meant for greatness." Aria's hands trembled as she read. This was not sudden corruption. This was gradual descent, jealousy transforming into obsession, resentment opening doors to darkness. "She chose this," Aria whispered. "Chose shadow over pack because she could not handle not being the center of attention. And now she is using that power to orchestrate your downfall while weakening pack defenses," Declan said. "We need more evidence. Enough to bring to Alpha Marcus." "That is the problem," Aria said. "Every piece could be explained away. Coincidences. We need to catch her in the act." "Then we find that proof," Aria said, determination hardening in her chest. "You keep investigating. I will work on control. And when the time comes, we will be ready." The next weeks became a rhythm of brutal days and secret nights. During daylight, Aria endured Aldrich's breaking disguised as training, but she played the role now with understanding, showed enough struggle to satisfy those who wanted her to fail, demonstrated enough improvement to justify continuing the evaluation. At night, when Cade was unconscious and the tower quiet, Declan would slip in with intelligence reports and actual instruction. He taught her meditation techniques used by special forces, breathing exercises that helped her stay present during the shift, visualization methods for controlling transformation speed. Your wolf is not your enemy, Declan explained. She is a partner, a teammate. You do not dominate teammates, you coordinate with them. The insight felt revolutionary. Aria had been approaching her wolf the way military doctrine taught, but the White Luna did not respond to traditional hierarchy. She required partnership. Slowly, painfully, Aria learned to communicate with her wolf beyond fear and force. They shared memories. The wolf showed Aria why she had stayed locked away during childhood. Not because Aria was weak, but because releasing that much divine power into an undeveloped body would have destroyed them both. The wolf had been protecting them. In return, Aria shared her loneliness, her desperate need to belong. The wolf understood isolation, had existed in darkness for 18 years while the world dismissed her human half. That shared understanding became the foundation of control. Not dominance, not submission, but partnership forged through mutual recognition of struggle. By week 6, Aria could shift in under 10 seconds. By week 8, she could speak clearly in wolf form without distorted harmonics. By week 10, she could maintain human consciousness completely while shifted. And throughout it all, Declan kept investigating, tracking patterns, following intelligence that suggested corruption, reaching deeper than either had suspected. Counselor Magnus, Declan revealed during one late-night briefing. He is involved. I intercepted communications between him and rogue forces. Coded language, but the pattern is clear. Magnus has always resented Marcus, Aria said. He lost his bid for Alpha 15 years ago, has been second in command since, watching a younger wolf lead with methods he considers too progressive. Exactly, Declan agreed. If he can prove Marcus's leadership is ineffective, he can challenge for Alpha again. He is using the crisis he is creating to justify a coup. But why help Serafina? Aria asked. Because she is a means to an end, Declan said grimly. Magnus likely believes he can control her, use her power to destabilize Marcus, then eliminate her once she has served her purpose. They are all playing games, Aria said quietly, sacrificing soldiers in their power struggles. Which is why we need to stop them, Declan said. Before the treaty expires, before the two-front war, they are engineering destroys Silverpine from within and without. The sun set outside her barred window, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. War was coming. Ironclaw Pack would cross borders soon, and somewhere in that chaos, Aria would find her place. Not as the colorless daughter, not as the dangerous weapon, but as something new, something the Pack did not have words for yet. The White Luna had risen, and her war was only beginning. 3 weeks before Aria's final evaluation, the border raids intensified from probing attacks to sustained assaults. Ironclaw Pack began massing forces along the territorial boundary, not even bothering to hide their war preparations. And Serafina started visiting Moonspire Tower personally, ostensibly to check on Aria's progress, but actually to plant seeds of doubt. She is speaking clearly in wolf form now, Aldrich reported during one such visit, while Aria stood in shifted state in the courtyard. The control is remarkable compared to where she started. If this trajectory continues, she may actually pass evaluation. May is not will, Serafina said sharply, her false concern slipping to reveal steel beneath. And speaking while shifted is the least of our concerns, Captain. Can she maintain discipline under combat stress? Can she follow orders when instinct screams otherwise? Those scenarios require field testing, Aldrich said carefully. Testing we cannot conduct in a containment facility. Absolutely not. Serafina's voice went cold as ice. She is not ready for deployment. One mistake and she kills experienced warriors we cannot afford to lose with Ironclaw preparing invasion. She stays contained until we are certain. So you are recommending her evaluation be failed, Aldrich said slowly. I am recommending we prioritize Pack survival over experimental weapons, Serafina corrected smoothly. That night, Declan arrived with blood on his uniform and panic in his eyes. What happened? Aria demanded. Another convoy, Declan said, voice rough with exhaustion and grief. Ambushed on Supply Route 7. We lost 8 soldiers. I was part of the response team. Got there in time to see them die, to smell the shadow magic on the rogues. 8 soldiers, Aria whispered. 8 families, 8 empty places in formation. I found this. Declan pulled out a small carved stone. Shadow totem. The rogues were carrying them, using them to enhance strength and speed beyond natural limits. This is not just intelligence sharing. This is active military support. We need to tell Marcus, Aria said urgently, before more soldiers die. With what proof? Declan asked bitterly. A totem I picked up at a battle site? That could have come from anywhere. Without direct evidence linking Serafina to the rogues, Marcus will never believe his fiancée is a traitor. Then we get that evidence, Aria said. You said the rogues are using shadow totems. Those artifacts have to come from somewhere. Can you trace the components? Possibly, Declan said slowly. The components are rare, specific plants that grow in limited locations. If I can identify the source, track procurement patterns, it might lead to the manufacturing site. How long, Aria asked. To trace components and locate the site? Maybe a week? To gather documentation and build an ironclad case? 2 weeks minimum. We have 3 weeks until my evaluation, Aria said, and probably less before Ironclaw launches invasion. We are running out of time. Then we move fast, Declan said. Be careful. Aria gripped his shoulder. If Serafina suspects you are investigating, you become just another casualty. I know the risks, Declan said quietly, but I cannot stand by while soldiers die. My brother died because I was too slow to see the pattern. I will not make that mistake again. The next 10 days were the most tense of Aria's captivity. She maintained her training routine with Aldrich, showing steady improvement while hiding her true capability. At night, she worked with Declan on his investigation, using her empathic abilities to scan guard rotations for signs of shadow corruption. They identified the components: rare fungi that grew only in deep forest caves, mineral compounds found in abandoned mine shafts. Each ingredient pointed toward a location in wilderness between Silverpine and Ironclaw territories. Declan planned his reconnaissance carefully. He requested leave under pretense of personal grief counseling. Then he slipped into wilderness with minimal gear. 3 days later, he returned with proof that changed everything. Photographs, dozens of them, showing a ritual site deep in the forest, shadow totems being constructed, and standing at the center, clearly visible in multiple shots, was Serafina. But she was not alone. Counselor Magnus worked beside her, Captain Dax, a senior warrior, Healer Miriam, and Lieutenant Cade. The conspiracy went deeper than either had imagined, not just political maneuvering. A coordinated coup designed to destabilize Marcus's leadership, eliminate Aria as potential threat, and position Serafina and Magnus as new alpha pair. We take this to Marcus now, Aria said urgently, before they realize you have this evidence. There is more, Declan said grimly. He pulled out another document. Intercepted communications. They are planning a major assault, not on our borders, on Central Pack grounds, during your final evaluation, when entire command structure will be gathered in one location. They coordinate with Ironclaw to launch simultaneous attacks. The final evaluation, Aria repeated, blood turning cold. 3 days from now. They are going to kill Marcus and the command council while I am on trial. Unless we stop them first, Declan said, but we have to move carefully. If we tip our hand too early, they accelerate the timeline or eliminate us. Then we need insurance, Aria said. We take this evidence to someone who cannot be compromised, someone whose authority supersedes pack politics. Who? Declan asked. Elder Elena, Aria said. She recognized divine authority before anyone else. She has survived decades of pack politics by being incorruptible. That night, they slipped through Moonspire Tower with stealth of soldiers on deep reconnaissance. They made it to the Elder's residence and knocked with careful urgency. Elder Elena opened the door with a knife in her weathered hand and calculation in her ancient eyes. Come in quickly, she said, and pray nobody saw you break containment. Inside, surrounded by centuries of pack history, they laid out everything. The evidence, the patterns, the photographs showing treason so blatant it could not be dismissed. Elder Elena studied the materials with focus of someone who had evaluated intelligence during 3 wars. Her hands trembled slightly as she set down the photographs. I suspected Magnus was moving against Marcus, she said quietly. But this, shadow magic, coordination with enemies, this is betrayal beyond mere coup. This is genocide for personal power. We need to act now, Declan said urgently. No, Elena said firmly. If we move too early, we tip them off. They scatter, destroy evidence. We need to catch them in the act. Let them commit to the attack. Then expose them when denial is impossible. You want to let the attack happen? Aria said slowly, understanding the brutal logic. I want to minimize casualties while ensuring justice, Elena corrected. If we warn Marcus now, he locks down security. The conspirators go to ground. We spend months rooting them out while they sabotage from shadows. But if we prepare quietly, position loyal forces to intercept, we can end this conspiracy permanently. What do you need from us? Aria asked. You, Elena pointed at Aria. Attend your final evaluation as scheduled. Demonstrate control. Pass judgment. When the attack comes, you shift and defend the command council with everything you have. You prove the White Luna is weapon we wield, not threat we contain. And me, Declan asked. You gather every loyal analyst and intelligence specialist you trust, Elena said. Position them with concealed weapons around the evaluation arena. When the traitors reveal themselves, your people provide supporting fire, while Aria handles heavy combat. This is insane, Declan said, but his voice held respect. You are talking about allowing an assassination attempt against the Alpha and Council. Yes, Elena agreed calmly. But the alternative is worse. Confronting the conspiracy without proof leads to pack civil war. This way we sacrifice perhaps a dozen lives to save hundreds. Aria met Declan's eyes and saw her own conflict reflected there. Everything about this plan violated instincts that said protect the innocent. But they were soldiers. And soldiers understood sometimes the mission required accepting casualties to achieve objectives. We do it, Aria said, but we make damn sure we are ready. Good, Elena said. Now get back before anyone notices you are missing. We have 3 days to prepare for the most important battle Silverpine has fought in decades. A battle not against external enemies, but against the rot within. The next 3 days felt like living in the moment before lightning strike. Aria attended scheduled training with Aldrich, showing control she had genuinely developed while hiding full extent of capabilities. She practiced shifting in under 5 seconds but showed 10. Demonstrated speech clarity but added slight distortion. Declan worked his intelligence network, quietly positioning analysts loyal to Marcus around the evaluation arena, distributing concealed weapons, establishing communication protocols. And throughout it all, Serafina visited Moonspire daily, ostensibly checking progress, actually ensuring her sister remained contained and manageable. Tomorrow is your evaluation, Serafina said on the final evening. I hope you have learned control, dear sister. It would be such a tragedy if you failed after coming so far. I will do my best, Aria said through her wolf form. That is all any soldier can promise. Best is often not enough, Serafina replied with a smile that did not reach her eyes, especially when the stakes are survival itself. After she left, Aria sat in darkness. Tomorrow everything would change. Either she would expose the conspiracy and prove her worth, or she would die trying. Her wolf stirred in her consciousness. We have prepared, her wolf said with quiet confidence. We have learned control. We have become what they feared we could never be. And tomorrow, Aria thought back, we show them that power tempered by discipline is more dangerous than raw strength ever could be. The dawn came gray and cold. Aria was escorted to the central arena in an armored transport, flanked by guards who kept weapons ready. The arena was already packed. Every wolf in Silverpine Pack had turned out for this spectacle, the final evaluation of the White Luna, the judgment that would determine whether divine blessing was salvation or curse. The command council sat at their crescent table, Alpha Marcus at the head, his expression carved from granite. Beside him sat Serafina, radiant in her officer's dress uniform, her golden hair pinned in severe military style. Around them sat the other counselors, Magnus with his calculating eyes, the others whose loyalty Aria could no longer trust. Aria Moonstone, Marcus's voice boomed across the arena. You stand before this council for final evaluation. You have been given 60 days to demonstrate control of your wolf, submission to military authority, and tactical reliability under stress. Today you will prove you have achieved these objectives or be declared too dangerous to exist among civilized wolves. The formal charges were read, the requirements stated, and then the testing began. Shift, Marcus commanded. Aria closed her eyes and reached for her wolf. The presence came immediately, no longer vast and overwhelming, but familiar, comfortable, a partner waiting for her signal. Together, she thought. The shift was smooth. 5 seconds from human to massive white wolf. No screaming, no violent bone-breaking, just controlled transformation that left her standing on 4 legs, calm and aware. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Even Marcus's eyes widened slightly. Shift back, he commanded. Another 5 seconds. Smooth transition. Aria stood human again, breathing steadily, her body responding to her will rather than fighting it. "Speak," Marcus said, "in wolf form. Demonstrate control of impossible ability." Aria shifted again. 3 seconds this time. Her massive white wolf stood in arena center, and when she spoke, her voice was clear and steady. "I am Aria Moonstone, White Luna of Silverpine Pack. I speak with human reason and wolf instinct unified. I am weapon and soldier both, and I am ready to serve." The arena erupted in shocked murmurs. Even the most skeptical wolves could not deny what they had witnessed. This was not the uncontrolled beast from 2 months ago. This was precision. This was partnership between human and divine. "Captain Aldrich," Marcus said, "your assessment." Aldrich stood, his weathered face showing something approaching pride. "In 60 days, Moonstone has achieved what I thought impossible. She shifts on command within seconds. She maintains full consciousness in wolf form. She speaks with clarity that violates known biology. And most importantly," he paused, "she demonstrates judgment, strategic thinking, the ability to choose restraint over violence even when provoked." He met Marcus's eyes. "She is not liability, Alpha. She is asset, perhaps the most valuable asset this pack has ever produced." The crowd's murmuring grew louder, positive now, impressed. Seraphina's face had gone pale. "Then it is settled," Marcus said, and something like relief crossed his features. "Aria Moonstone, by authority of this council and evaluation of military command, you are declared fit for service. Your divine blessing is recognized as tactical advantage rather than existential threat. Welcome to active duty." The arena should have erupted in celebration. But before anyone could respond, before Marcus could finish his declaration, the attack began. It started with explosions. 3 simultaneous detonations at key structural points around the arena. Support columns crumbled, sections of seating collapsed, wolves screamed as stone and steel rained down, and through the smoke and chaos, shadow-corrupted rogues poured in, dozens of them, moving with unnatural speed, their eyes glowing red with forbidden magic, weapons enhanced with dark power. "Ambush!" someone screamed. "We are under attack!" But it was not external attack, because leading the corrupted rogues, her beautiful face twisted into something monstrous, was Seraphina. And beside her, no longer bothering to hide his treachery, stood Counselor Magnus. "Traitors!" Marcus roared, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Seraphina, Magnus, you dare!" "We dare everything," Magnus shouted back. "Your weakness ends today, Marcus. Your progressive leadership that values logistics girls over combat tradition. Your foolish mercy toward threats like the White Freak. Today, Silverpine returns to traditional strength." Seraphina's gaze locked on Aria, and pure hatred blazed in eyes that had gone completely red with shadow corruption. "You should have stayed broken," she hissed. "Should have accepted being worthless. But you had to prove yourself, had to earn their respect, had to take everything that should have been mine." She shifted, but not into the golden wolf Aria remembered, into something twisted, massive and dark, fur like shadows made solid, teeth too long and sharp, body enhanced by forbidden magic until she was nearly as large as Aria's white wolf. "Now I kill you," Seraphina's corrupted voice rumbled. "And then I kill our weak alpha. And when the ashes settle, Magnus and I will rule over wolves who understand that power is only currency that matters." The shadow-corrupted rogues surged forward, attacking the command council, slaughtering civilians caught in the crossfire. The tactical squad assigned to Marcus's protection tried to form defensive perimeter, but were overwhelmed by sheer numbers and unnatural strength. This was the moment Elder Elena had predicted, the moment when conspiracy revealed itself completely, when denial became impossible. And this was the moment Aria had been preparing for. She shifted. Fastest transformation yet, 2 seconds from human to divine warrior. Her massive white wolf leaped forward, placing herself between the corrupted rogues and Marcus. Her voice, amplified by divine authority, crashed across the arena like thunder. "Stand down or be destroyed." The rogues hesitated. Even corrupted by shadow magic, they recognized power that transcended normal hierarchy, recognized divinity made flesh. But Seraphina did not hesitate. She launched herself at Aria with speed enhanced by dark magic, jaws aimed for the throat. They collided in the center of the arena with force that cracked the stone floor. 2 massive wolves, light and shadow locked in combat that would determine not just their fates, but the fate of Silverpine Pack itself. Seraphina was fast, unnaturally so. Her shadow-enhanced body hit with force that should have been impossible. They tumbled through the arena, slamming into walls, destroying everything in their path. But Aria was larger, stronger, and most importantly, she fought with clarity, with purpose, with the discipline of a soldier rather than the rage of a corrupted beast. She caught Seraphina's lunge, her massive jaws closing on her sister's corrupted shoulder, and twisted, used her superior size to throw Seraphina across the arena. The dark wolf slammed into a stone pillar hard enough to crack it. "You were always weak," Seraphina snarled, pulling herself up. "Even with divine blessing, you are still the colorless daughter, still worthless, still nothing." "No," Aria's voice rang clear and strong. "I am exactly what I was always meant to be. A wolf who chooses service over dominance, who uses power to protect rather than destroy, who proves that strength tempered by discipline is more dangerous than raw force." She charged forward, not with rage but with precision. This was not revenge. This was justice. This was a soldier executing her mission to protect her pack from internal corruption. Meanwhile, around them, the real battle raged. Declan's analysts had positioned perfectly. As the corrupted rogues attacked, loyal wolves emerged from concealed positions with weapons ready. Crossfire caught the traitors in coordinated strikes that spoke of military planning. But the rogues were enhanced by shadow magic. What should have been killing shots merely wounded. They fought on with unnatural endurance. Elder Elena appeared on the command platform, ancient but unbowed. Her voice carried across the chaos with surprising strength. "All loyal wolves, hear me. This is not invasion. This is coup attempt by traitors who have sold themselves to shadow. Counselor Magnus and Seraphina Moonstone have coordinated with our enemies to slaughter your alpha and install themselves through blood. Will you let them?" The answer came in howls of rage. Wolves who had been confused by the sudden violence now understood. This was not external enemy. This was cancer within, and they responded with fury that only betrayal could inspire. The tide began to turn. Loyalist wolves overwhelmed corrupted rogues through sheer numbers and righteous anger. But Magnus had prepared for this. He pulled out artifacts, shadow totems that pulsed with dark energy. He activated them, 7 simultaneously, and reality itself began to crack. Shadows poured through the fractures. Not just corrupted wolves, but actual shadow entities, beings from beyond their world that should never have been summoned. They swept across the arena like living darkness, draining life force from any wolf they touched. Marcus was down, wounded from debris, his tactical squad decimated, the command council scattered, and Aria realized with terrible clarity that this was the moment Elena had warned about. The moment when she had to choose, remain controlled and measured, or unleash full divine power with all the destruction that entailed. She looked at Declan across the chaos. He was fighting beside other analysts, defending civilians, bleeding from multiple wounds but still standing. He met her eyes and nodded, understanding passing between them without words. "Do what you have to do," his expression said. "We trust you." Aria turned back to Seraphina's corrupted form, to the shadow entities pouring through reality cracks, to Magnus laughing as he watched his dark magic overwhelm the pack. And she made her choice. Her wolf's consciousness merged completely with her human awareness. Not domination, not submission, perfect unity. 2 halves becoming whole for the first time. Power exploded from her form, pure divine light that blazed through the arena like a star being born. White radiance that was not soft or gentle but fierce, purifying, absolute. Where it touched shadow entities, they did not just die, they were unmade, erased from existence so completely that even memory of them dimmed. Where it touched shadow totems, they shattered into dust. Where it touched corrupted rogues, it gave them a choice, felt through empathic connection that was part of her divine gift. Release the shadow you embraced willingly, or be consumed by light that will burn corruption from your very soul. Most chose release. The darkness drained from their eyes. Their enhanced strength faded. They collapsed, weak and gasping, but alive and clean. Seraphina chose to fight. She lunged at Aria one final time, shadow corruption blazing around her like dark flames. Aria met her sister's charge, not with matching violence, but with embrace. She wrapped her massive white wolf form around Serafina's corrupted body and poured divine light directly into her. Serafina screamed, not in pain, but in recognition of truth she had been denying. The light showed her what she had become, what she had sacrificed for power and recognition, the soldiers who died because of her ambition, the pack she had betrayed for personal glory. And it showed her what she could have been, the leader she might have become if she had chosen service over dominance, partnership over competition. The shadow corruption burned away in layers. Serafina's monstrous form diminished, revealed the golden wolf beneath. Then that too faded, leaving her sister naked and weeping on the arena floor. "I am sorry," Serafina sobbed, all pride and arrogance stripped away. "I am so sorry. I just wanted to matter, wanted to be special," and the shadows promised. "I know," Aria said gently, shifting back to human form. "And you did matter. You always did. But you let jealousy poison what could have been greatness." Magnus tried to run, tried to escape through the chaos, but Elder Elena stepped into his path, and despite her age, despite his shadow-enhanced strength, she did not flinch. "Your coup has failed," she said calmly. "Your corruption is exposed. Surrender and face military justice." "Never," Magnus snarled. He shifted, his form also twisted by shadow magic, and lunged at the ancient wolf. Aria moved faster. Her white wolf form crossed the arena in 2 great leaps. She caught Magnus in midair, her jaws closing on his corrupted neck, not killing, but forcing submission. "Yield," she commanded through their telepathic link, "or I end this now." For a moment, Magnus struggled. Then he felt the full weight of her divine power, felt how easily she could crush him, how completely he was outmatched. He shifted back to human form, defeated. The battle was over. The corrupted rogues either purified or dead, the shadow entities unmade, the totems destroyed, and the conspiracy exposed for all to witness. Casualties littered the arena floor. Aria counted them through her empathic sense. 47 dead, triple that wounded, a terrible cost. But Elder Elena's brutal calculation had been correct. If they had confronted the conspiracy without this proof, without catching the traitors in the act, the civil war would have killed hundreds. Marcus pulled himself to his feet, blood streaming from a head wound, but alive. He looked at Aria with something approaching wonder. "You saved us," he said simply. "When we were weakest, when treachery struck from within, you stood between your pack and destruction. You proved every doubt wrong, every fear unfounded." "I did my duty," Aria said quietly. "Nothing more than any soldier would." "No," Elena said, approaching with surprising spryness despite the chaos. "You did what white lunas have always been meant to do. You transformed the battlefield. Not through conquest, but through protection. Not through dominance, but through service." She turned to address the assembled wolves. "Let it be known. Aria Moonstone is recognized as White Luna of Silverpine Pack. Not through force, not through political maneuvering, but through action, through sacrifice, through choosing to defend wolves who feared her, mocked her, imprisoned her. That is the mark of true leadership." The crowd was silent for a long moment. Then one wolf began to howl, then another, then dozens, hundreds, the sound building until the entire arena echoed with acknowledgement, with acceptance, with something approaching reverence. But Aria did not want reverence. She shifted back to human form and walked to where Declan sat against a wall, binding wounds with strips torn from his uniform. "You are hurt," she said, kneeling beside him. "I will live," he said with a tired smile. "Thanks to you. We all will." "Not all," Aria whispered, her empathic sense showing her every death. Every life ended by the conspiracy. 47 wolves who will not go home, 47 families destroyed. Declan gripped her hand. "You gave them the best death soldiers can have, defending their pack against real enemies, dying for something that mattered. My brother would have been proud to stand with you today." Tears streamed down Aria's face, not tears of victory, but of grief for the cost, for the price of survival. The aftermath took hours to process. Serafina and Magnus were taken into custody, the surviving corrupted rogues secured, the wounded treated, the dead honored. And through it all, Aria worked. She used her divine light to heal those she could, her empathic abilities to provide comfort to the dying, her strength to clear debris and rescue trapped wolves. She did not act like a Luna. She acted like a soldier, like someone who understood that leadership meant service. 3 days later, military justice was swift. Magnus was executed for treason, conspiracy, and murder of Silver Pine soldiers. His death was quick, professional, a bullet rather than the drawn-out punishment some called for. Seraphina's fate was more complicated. Many demanded execution, but Aria spoke at her trial. "She is my sister," Aria said before the command council. "She made terrible choices, committed unforgivable crimes, but she was corrupted by shadow magic that preyed on her weaknesses, on jealousy and ambition that our culture encourages and then punishes when taken too far. Execute her, and we learn nothing. We fail to examine how our values created the conditions for this betrayal. Exile her, and we give her the chance for redemption, to live with her choices, to perhaps become better than she was." The council debated for hours. Finally, Marcus spoke. "Exile," he declared. "Seraphina Moonstone is stripped of rank, name, and pack affiliation. She is banished to rogue territories where she will live or die by her own strength. No pack will take her. No family will claim her. She is truly alone." Aria visited her sister one final time before the exile. Seraphina looked small now, broken, all her beauty and arrogance stripped away. "I do not expect forgiveness," Seraphina said quietly. "I do not deserve it." "You do not," Aria agreed, "but I hope you find peace. I hope you learn that worth comes from inside, not from comparison or competition." "You were always stronger," Seraphina whispered. "I should have seen it. Should have made you ally instead of enemy." "Perhaps," Aria said, "but you made your choices. Now you live with consequences." She walked away, leaving her sister to exile and regrets. 1 month later, Silver Pine Pack gathered for memorial ceremony. 47 names were read aloud. 47 candles lit. Aria stood before the assembled wolves and spoke. "They gave everything so we could survive. They died defending Pack against enemies within and without. We honor them not with words, but with how we live, with the Pack we build from these ashes." She paused, looking across the crowd. "I am your White Luna. Not because I sought the title, not because I demanded recognition, but because I choose to serve, to protect, to stand between you and threats you cannot face alone. I will make mistakes. I will need guidance. But I promise you this, I will never use my power to dominate. I will never demand worship. I am Aria first, Luna second, soldier always." The Pack howled their acknowledgement, and for the first time in her life, Aria felt she belonged. Marcus approached afterward. "We need to discuss your role going forward. Luna traditionally mates with Alpha, but given everything, I am not your mate," Aria said firmly, "and you need to find a partner who complements your leadership style, someone who values what you value." He nodded with relief. "I agree, but I would value your counsel, your strategic thinking, your abilities." "You have it," Aria said, "as military advisor, as tactical asset, but not as political spouse. That is not my calling." "Fair enough," Marcus extended his hand. "Partners, then. In defense of the Pack we both serve." Aria shook it. Partners. She found Declan later, working in intelligence archives. He had been promoted to Chief Intelligence Officer for his work exposing the conspiracy. "You planning to hide in here forever?" she asked. "Just until the hero worship dies down," he said with tired smile. "I prefer analysis to celebration." Aria sat beside him. "I wanted to thank you for seeing me when no one else did, for risking everything to help me." "You saved my life today," Declan pointed out. "I think we are even." "No," Aria said quietly. "You saved me months ago, when you chose to see a person instead of a threat. That changed everything." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Declan spoke. "What now? You are White Luna, divine blessing made flesh. What comes next?" "The same thing that came before," Aria said. "Work, service, using this power to protect rather than dominate. And maybe," she smiled, "finding time to visit observatories with friends who do not care about divine status." Declan smiled back. "I would like that. The story should have ended there, with acceptance earned and place secured." But as Aria stood on the walls of Silver Pine territory that night, looking out over lands she had sworn to protect, her wolf stirred. "Something is coming," her wolf whispered. "I can feel it. A response to the light we showed, a balance being restored." "What do you mean?" Aria asked. In the distance, beyond the border, a howl rose, deep and resonant, and wrong somehow, carrying harmonics that should not exist. "Light has risen," her wolf said quietly, "and now darkness answers." But that was a threat for another day. Tonight, Aria Moonstone stood as White Luna of Silverpine Pack, no longer the colorless daughter, no longer the dangerous weapon, but a soldier who had proven that divine blessing tempered by discipline could save rather than destroy. She had been conscripted into divinity through humiliation and isolation. She had survived the siege of systematic breaking and political conspiracy, and she had achieved victory, though at terrible cost. The White Luna's war was not over. It might never be over, but tonight she had won the battle that mattered most. The battle to prove she was worth more than they believed. The battle to transform from dismissed to indispensable. The battle to show that power was not the opposite of service, but the tool that made service possible. And tomorrow, she would wake and do it all again. Because that was what soldiers did. They served. They protected. They stood watch while others slept safely. The White Luna had risen, and she was only beginning to understand what that truly meant.